So my first full-time job straight out of high school.
A grown-uppy job.
Took a gap year.
Okay.
So it was late 80s.
Fuck, hang on. No, I got to visualize.
Yeah.
What kind of, you're working in a roller disco, aren't you?
Yeah. And wearing nothing but spandex.
You're coaching John Travolta on the roller derby?
I had better abs though. It was amazing. I had 9 abs. So I got a job at a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
As a trainee assistant manager stream, the fast track.
They didn't start you on Dish Pig and
yeah, I had to do that for
folded napkins.
But it was like 2 weeks on this job, 2 weeks on that job, 2 weeks on that job, and then boom, you're a shift manager.
Respect, man. Respect.
Yeah.
You're doing well.
And it was part of a chain restaurant. There was only one Canberra one, and all the others were in another Australian city.
Is it a chain that still exists?
Not in Canberra.
Okay.
The reason I'm not mentioning its name directly will probably become apparent in a moment.
All right, cool.
There was lots of manuals, lots of training hierarchy, stuff like this. The pay was awesome.
Okay.
Like it was fucking spectacular for the time. There were heaps of shifts. It was 24 hours, so you could be
24
hours. So there were 3 shifts per rotation. And it was good. Like I was cooking. It was high pressure, but it was kind of interesting. There was a good group of people. We're all sort of 15 to 25.
Yep.
Got on really well, about 30 of us. Lots of parties. My first long-term live-in lady friend.
Oh, nice.
I met her there, and we both.
That's a management perk.
It was a management perk.
Yeah, casuals don't get no girlfriend.
Here's your free lady.
What?
She
I
will
didn't
live
mean it
with
like
you.
that.
That's exactly what they said. So I learned a lot. Like it was really good in a lot of ways. Good and stressful, but kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I still have some dreams. I learned some, actual life lessons by doing this job.
I get it. It's almost like out of high school, people do learn life lessons by going to work.
Straighten up, fly right, son.
Pull your boots up
Pull up your bum skins and loosen
push your boots up onto your feet.
Yep. And fly right with your guns on the board.
Yeah.
Also, at the time at least, the owners and top senior management were all in what many people would consider to be a cult.
Welcome to The Wholesome Show.
The podcast, where 2 academics knock off early, grab a couple of beers, and sprint down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole. Down the rabbit hole.
Deep down the rabbit hole.
I'm Will Grant.
I am Rod Lamberts, and I am not currently in a cult. So this episode was inspired by, I was musing, are there any good cults? Because the cult stories you all hear, bad.
Most news is about things going wrong. Building burns down.
Yeah. But in a fun way.
Murders are murdery.
But they deserved it.
No, still.
Plane crash, but it was old.
Crash. But we don't tell stories about plane-made flight. Everyone had a nice time, watched some cool shows.
Happy holiday makers at the beach.
With the news, if it's going to mention a cult, is going to be, and a cult went downhill fast and everyone died.
Or got sexed.
Or got sexed in problematic ways.
Yes.
Are there any good cults? Are there any good
So this is what this is inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the cult I was talking about first up? Scientology.
Ooh, point of contention. We're just going to get sued.
Cult?
Is it?
No, that's a question. Is it a cult?
Legally in Australia?
Yeah, see, it comes up under when you search cult.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said at the beginning, he says very carefully, some people at the time considered it to be cultish. So it's founded in the 1950s by the science fiction author L. Ron Hubbard. Not L. Ron, L. Ron Hubbard.
What was his first name? If you don't like your first name enough.
I'm going to say Larissa.
I've always wondered, if why not just go by Ron Hubbard? Like if you like your middle name more, you go by Ron. That's cool.
So he taught his people, fears, insecurities, psychosomatic illnesses can all be cleansed by better connecting with our souls. And our souls are, of course, extraterrestrial in origin.
Well, I was with him a little of the way.
Yeah.
Not all of the way.
Yeah. The souls are also known as thetans. Mm-hmm. They're immortal. And before they arrived on Earth, they existed inside aliens.
So just to pause, though, this is not that statement is not necessarily culty. There are many different religions in the world, and they have different ideas of where the soul comes from.
They do.
And all that
Different
kind of
origin stories.
What makes it culty?
We're getting to that. So modern society, of course, doesn't realize this is what happened. So apparently, the gist of it is they arrived in a bunch of spaceships, which honestly, literally described as looking kind of like old sort of 1950s airliners.
So souls have to travel in spaceships?
Well, the aliens that had our souls originally did. And
did
then
they have them in bags or are they in them?
In their bodies. And then they ended up, as I remember it, in volcanoes.
Yeah, well, obviously. That's where you park your spaceship.
The people, then the souls came out and we got them. And they also said basically most particularly psychological ailments are misdiagnoses and we can cure them by, being better salt.
Being better. No, that is common, like mother-in-law sort of statement. Why don't you just be happy?
You got a sniffle?
Why don't you just think happy?
Yeah, think happy, think clean.
What I always find is I think happy.
Yes.
And then the dark thoughts go away.
Look at me, no pleurisy. So I was told many of the management systems had jargon that came from Scientology talk.
Management systems in your restaurant.
In the restaurant, yeah, and the labels and stuff. But honestly, at face value, they just seemed like that's fine.
So make sure your accounts line up with your thetans as well.
No, literally just the titles. Like they talk about how you'd have different hats, which apparently at the time was unusual, and that was a very Scientology thing to say. I didn't know this. It didn't bother me. It was just like, all right. There was just apparently, because I think L. Ron Hubbard put out kind of how to manage a company or how you should be a leader and stuff like this as well.
That's what I think Jesus said as well.
How to manage.
Like while he was just final sermons, he's like, okay, I got a few more in me.
Godtrepreneurial.
Yeah. You want to make some money? Then here's what you probably
do it like my father did.
Use Prince 2.
Yep.
A lot. Disruptive innovation. I think Jesus said that.
He did.
I think so.
He was disruptive. He turned over those
Don't
tables
go into carpentry.
where they were doing the Lamington Drive at the church. He got mad with them. That's disruptive.
I don't think it was a Lamington Drive. And I don't think it was a church.
Pies. Not a church.
Lamington Drive.
You monsters. If you want to be entrepreneurial, it should be Loganberry.
I do like the idea of the Son of God coming down and going, that's it, final straw.
Yeah.
Fucking cooking Lamingtons in the church.
Yeah, I've had enough.
That is too much.
You guys are fucking monsters.
Oh, God.
Eternal damnation.
Poor old Lord Lamington, though. Lord Lamington didn't like Lamingtons, and he was pissed when they named him after him, which I love.
That'd be like naming me after being buried alive. Sorry, naming buried alive after me. That works better.
Rod condition.
Yes, you've been Lambertified.
Lamingtons, for those internationally, are a little bit of sponge, covered in chocolate and then covered in coconut on the outside.
And for the sophisticants among us, with a layer of cream in the middle because extra moistness. Anyway, so I was told many of the systems were using jargon from Scientology, or sci-fi as we called it.
Okay.
And rumours among many of the staff in our restaurant and others, they said, a lot of the assistant managers, our shift managers, on occasion they'd get approached to, learn more.
Oh, so you were in track.
I was never approached in any vague way whatsoever.
But they gave you management track, but not godly track.
Because it's also a company and they wanted to make money, and I was actually quite good at the job.
Oh, so you're like the useful idiot, or you can't get into the. What's the term for that? Well, like where you get someone that can
Lamberts again. It was another thing to name it up. Useful idiot.
This guy can do the books, but he ain't coming to the godly part.
He's functional, but not that functional. But no, so I'd hear all these rumors, but I was never approached like ever anything. There was some funny times and some, rather extremely naive views, and some of the senior managers would come down and talk to us, and we'd just sit there going, "That's hilarious."
That's so.
But never proselytizing. There was never any talk of Scientology.
So they just it would be in the air, but not like we're Sunday morning is cult clock.
Yeah. No, there was none of that. Okay. So, but it was always like, oh no, the owners and the senior managers were sci-fis.
Ah.
And they, the owners' names appear on lists of donations to Scientology and stuff like that.
Cool.
So it was never mentioned explicitly. Well, is it a cult though? This is a question. So I can't say for sure that it was. From my perspective, I didn't see any of it.
Well, you're not in it.
No, I'm not in it. Or am I? But also, I never get approached by people who have these strong belief systems, like ever. I wish they would, but they never talk to me. Like I used to, as an undergrad, I'd walk past the focus students, the Jesus on campus students, looking them in the eye, and they're like, not talk to me.
Not talking to that guy.
Yeah.
Because you've got trouble causer written all over you.
Shit, yeah. And like in the shopping centres, there are different, Hare Krishnas don't even talk to me. I'm like,
Hare Krishnas are great.
I got no beef with them. It's just like, but why don't you talk to me? And they won't. They look at me and they're like, no,
not that guy. Not that guy. He
wants it too much.
Look, I don't want to veer into another territory of awful people, but sex offenders, they look for certain people.
They do.
They might groom towards a certain target, because of certain things.
Yeah. They notice characteristics, or
maybe you don't have that. Whatever the cult guy.
Pretty confident I don't, because honestly, there are times that I'm like, talk to me. I want to really, I want to ask you some fucking questions.
Though, I was walking.
And they don't.
I was walking through campus the other day, and there's been some people attempting to say, join our church. Yeah, fine, whatever.
Good for you.
They don't offer to me as well, but you could see there were some young guys that were having the convo, and it's like, and you could hear. I just walked past, and one's like, "Well, I think it is more rational to," and I was like,
"Oh yeah." But have you scienced?
I was like, I want to be a million miles away from this conversation.
And right there as well.
Like 4 very self-possessed people in their own views, but utterly
both convinced they can change the other one's mind by just
rationality.
Tripling down. No, but belief. No, but the science. No, but maths. No, but faith. You're like, yep, good for you.
Is Scientology a cult?
Look, I've heard arguments for it being so.
Is there a legal definition that we can work with for a cult that we can work backwards?
I have some definitions for you.
Cool.
So, former Harvard Medical School psychiatrist, a guy called Robert Lifton, he wrote a paper in the 80s called Cult Formation.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look, there are 3 primary characteristics that are most commonly shared by, but the emphasis here is destructive cults.
Okay, destructive, yep.
He doesn't, as far as I'm aware, compare that to non-destructive. He just says destructive cults. 1, a charismatic leader.
Yeah.
So they increasingly become an object of worship. The general principles that may have originally started the group kind of fall away, and the leader becomes the object of meaning, accountability, etc. And the sole authority. That's 1, charismatic leader. 2, process of indoctrination or education, which probably looks like the quotes are either coercive persuasion or thought reform, aka brainwashing.
Yeah.
So the culmination of this process is the group often do things that are not in their own best interest, but are certainly consistently in the interest of the group and or particularly the leader.
Yep.
So no surprise there. And the third one, economic, sexual, or other exploitation of the rulers by the leader or the ruling mob.
So give me them again. So you got
charismatic leader, process of indoctrination, and some versions of exploitation by leader and their lieutenants.
Does this include like a specific sort of coercive element in sort of forcing people and stopping people from leaving? Like is that a part of, is that part of the indoctrination?
In many cases, they are discouraged to leave, let's just say. We'll get to this. These are the 10 warning signs. Now, actually, no, to be fair, I don't know if that comes from this guy's book, but it's been quoted all over the shop when you look up cults. 10 clear warning signs that they call it potentially unsafe group or leader. I know it's 10, but they're not long. 1, absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just the boss, and that's the statement. 2, no tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. Sounds like the education system, man. 3, or the Liberal Party. Am I right?
Hey, nice. Or insert your hated political party choice.
Insert other here. Them.
Like.
Insert them here. 3, no meaningful financial disclosure about budget or expenses. No independently authorized or audited financial statements.
Yeah, okay.
So this makes
We're just
sense.
using money and not saying what it's going for.
Did it come in or not? Did they spend it on me? Did they give it to me first?
Sure.
Unreasonable fear about the outside world. Often impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, notions of persecution, all that sort of good stuff. They're not saying you need all 10 of these. They're saying these are things to look out for. No legitimate reason, number 5, to leave. Former followers are always wrong in leaving. They're negative or they're even perhaps evil.
Always wrong.
They've failed. If you've left, you fucked up, you're wrong, you're evil, you're bad. Former members, number 6, often relate the same stories of abuse and reflect similar patterns of grievances. So they're saying a warning sign of a cult is other people who've been in cults say the same thing. So it's kind of like a norming deal.
But then they would say that.
Well, they would because they've been in a cult.
Yeah, because they're evil.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They left because they couldn't hack it. They weren't pure enough. They weren't worthy. There is a lot of worthy. 7, records. There are records, books, news articles, broadcast reports, podcasts, etc. that document all the abuses. So there's on-record stuff. 8, followers feel they can never be good enough.
Oh, even when they're in there?
Yeah.
Like
especially that's how you keep them there because you're always almost, or you could just be a bit better.
Yeah, okay.
There's always one more level, one more thing, one more thing you could do. The group leader is always right. That's number 9. And finally, the group leader or the leader of the upper echelons, they are the exclusive way of knowing the truth, receiving validation, etc. No other process of discovery is credible.
So not even a book?
It's got to come through, or unless they wrote the book or endorsed the book. It's got to come through.
I'd be cautious. Like if I was,
now?
No, I'm just saying if I was the charismatic leader of a cult, I'd be you can have the book when I'm dead, but up until that point it's me, and then you have the book.
Yeah,
but while I'm still around, book has no authority.
Got to come to me.
Yeah, and then
that's because you're not an idiot.
Yeah,
you know how to run a cult.
Keep things in advance, man.
We're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
So obviously I'm going to check a couple out. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. 2 I've never heard of before. God, there are a lot, obviously.
Oh my God. You may not have seen this, but are there like global patterns? Like who has the most cults?
Look, America features highly,
Yeah, yeah.
not shockingly.
I mean, would that be sort of a more libertarian free, they explicitly have freedom of religion in their constitution, but many other countries do. So that's one part.
Yeah, look, I'll talk about that in a tick because there is certain predilections who's going to be more likely to get involved.
I imagine whilst there would be cults in China, authoritarian governments might like them less.
Well, like Falun Gong or Falun,
Falun Gong, Falun Dafa.
Dafa, yeah. I saw a bunch of them marching outside the embassy earlier this week, in fact. The Chinese government does not like them. They are definitely, they tick many cult boxes.
From the Chinese government perspective, they absolutely tick that and they are working that way. But I'm wondering if potentially, now I don't know a lot about the insides or the doctrines of Falun Gong, but you could imagine that the Chinese government's threshold for stamping out a cult is a hell of a lot lower than, say, the American government's. Like the American government, you've got to go really pretty bad before you're going to get stamped out. China probably
or any kind of threat to the authority of what some might call a different kind of cult. Mm-hmm. But then again, let's wait till November and see what happens to America. Speaking of, particular leaders.
Oh, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So two that I've never heard of, but just to give us a little flavor, and to be clear up front, these are not good cults.
Okay.
And you'll probably start to, it'll become apparent eventually. It's quite subtle, but you might see a few indicators of it not being great. So the Order of the Solar Temple, I don't know if you've heard of them. I have not.
Order of the Solar Temple?
Solar Temple.
That's cool. That's a nice name. It feels
Sounds
fun.
august, right?
Yeah.
It's very European.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, very European.
Like, what sort of European are we talking? Like high pants or?
Started in Geneva.
Geneva?
I know. I'm like, a Swiss cult? One thing's for sure, it
being
works.
on time.
Yes,
being on
works.
time. It's an on time. See, I can be part of the on time cult. I'll come back to that.
I got no beef with that either. Like, if you're late, get fucked. Unless obviously someone died in your arms and you cared.
Yeah, and you got burning baby all over you.
I do that anyway. That's what the scent is. Yeah. I know it's musty and a little acrid. So, started in Geneva, 1984, by Joseph de Mambro and Luc Jouret. So Jouret claimed to be both Christ and the reincarnation of a member of the 14th century Knights Templar.
Oh.
Which we know, I mean, they're subject of many movies. Who doesn't want to be a Templar or not want to be a Templar?
No, I know, of course. Like when you're looking for your reincarnation person, you go for
Jesus, Napoleon, Caesar, Cleopatra, or a Templar.
Calm down, man. You got some.
Those are the ones. Go to any insane asylum. That's what they're called.
No, man. I'm going obscure. I'm going
Kurt Cobain. I met him, you know.
Oh my God.
Carry on.
No, you go the guy that invented dice or something like that, or some
Jesus de Flavario,
or a pirate. Maybe a pirate would be nice.
You're Blackbeard.
Yeah, Blackbeard. I'm Blackbeard. That'll do.
You were Blackbeard.
Yeah, again.
Anyway, so yes, the Jouret is the both Christ and a member reincarnated.
A Templar. So he's like Christ with a sword.
Yeah. I mean, really,
Christ did say he'd come back with a sword, so fair enough.
Why do you need to be more? I'm Christ. Oh, and dude, you had me at Christ. That's pretty impressive.
And Jesus' little brother as well. Weirdly, on both of them.
Johann.
John? Yeah, like that. There was a whole family after Jesus. Like Mary didn't sit around waiting for God to do it again.
How could she get pregnant after having all that Jesus in her? Like, surely that just blasted her womb clean.
She birthed him normally.
But surely that was the end of it.
No. Well,
you're never going to do better.
And then Jesus' non-dad, like his stepdad, came in and said, well, okay, Mary.
Fuck, he was mean to him too.
You had one go.
Dad, you're not my real dad.
I'm sure God was good. Now let's have second best sex for the rest of our lives. And it'll be cool. There's a whole bunch more kids.
I want to go to the taverna. No, you can't. You're not my real dad.
And that's a historical fact.
Is it?
Yes.
Historical fact.
Guaranteed.
Joseph and Mary definitely existed. Were only one couple. And they had 9 kids. So anyway, these guys both fancied themselves. So de Mambro and Jouret fancied themselves the leaders of the new version of the Templars, which a lot of people have fancied themselves as being. They prophesied that de Mambro's daughter would take the group's members to a planet that revolved around the star Sirius after their earthly death. Classic Templar lore.
It is, yeah. No, obviously, take the Holy Lands and then go to another planet. That's on our horses.
Sirius.
Like, we will gallop, there will be a big ramp, and you'll be able to take off and go to the stars.
No, you'll go in a catapult.
Calm down.
Or maybe a trebuchet.
A trebuchet to the stars.
Fuck, I love a trebuchet.
Do you know you probably could build a trebuchet big enough to launch someone to the stars? Like, theoretically.
You reckon you could get through the atmosphere? You could reach escape velocity with a trebuchet.
I reckon you could. Trebuchet accelerates quite a lot.
Listeners?
It would take physicists, give me a diagram here, but I think you could theoretically make a trebuchet that would be big enough to launch to space.
So, yeah, his daughter was going to become, one of their daughters would become the leader, and off they'd go. Dimumbro and Jure both believed the end of the world would come in the mid-1990s.
Classic.
Yep. But the group lost a bunch of members, including Dimumbro's daughter, which is a bit awkward, when one of the leaders' visions was exposed as a hoax. It's like, what, you bullshitting me? You had a vision that turns out it's bullshit and it didn't happen? So even his daughter left. That's the early 1990s. In 1994, Dimumbro and Jure thought, nah, the end's near, it's coming. That's 94. October that year, 53 members of the order committed suicide and or were murdered in Canada and Switzerland.
Great.
With a reason, in order to transit to the new planet and enter a higher
Oh, so it's not real
plane.
murder. It's soul escape.
It's moving on.
Yeah, we're just letting the soul out
travel.
through the knife holes.
Exactly.
Like these are soul holes.
Travel. Soul.
How do you let the soul out of the body? Like straight through the heart
New hole.
or something like that.
Yeah, you need a soul hole. You're
Yeah,
right.
you need a soul hole.
You need a soul hole. Play it slowly. Edit it out. I don't mind. So the buildings that they were in were set fire after their deaths. I don't know by who, but
also,
that's what
you've got to, once the souls are out, you've got to make
burn
them
the
go
body.
faster.
Yeah, it's like when you catch a train, you got to burn the station you left from, otherwise the train won't get there. Everyone knows that.
Like you got to get it out.
Exactly. To be sure.
Sort of wafts the souls higher.
Yeah.
Like it's a wafting
and
process.
It's also, there's no way this thing's turning around now because there's nowhere to turn around to, like trains often do. So, and in 1995 or 96, at least 20 more members died in France and Canada. So the year after, a year or two. It also turns out that not long before his death, Dimumbro had ordered the murder of an infant he thought was the Antichrist.
Oh, you fuck.
Yeah, so old school hardcore doomsday cult with all the insanity that prevails.
Yeah.
That's one.
Okay, we'll chalk that down to not a good cult.
Not a good cult.
You know, all your
Good
members
cult,
die,
zero.
and you're murdering babies. You're down the bottom.
good.
You're down the bottom. There might be below a baby murdering cult. I don't know, but
Here's one.
Let's just assume it's towards the bottom.
Example 2.
Oh, every time you think, no, the floor is here. The floor is always lower.
Oh yeah. No, to be fair, this is not a doomsday cult.
All right. Okay.
So that's good, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to say yes, but you want me to say no.
I want you to say yes too.
All
It's
right.
good that it's not a doomsday cult because it's true. So the NXIVM cult, which is pronounced NXIVM, like the famous anti-gastric reflux drug.
NXIVM. So it's like
NXIVM.
yeah, but you write it in. That's how you pronounce it in typed out Latin. Like
Yes.
when you had to chisel your Latin and a U looked like a V.
That's how you type it in Roman numbers.
Yeah. N being
A number.
it's the big number.
Number. X being
10, 1, 5,
a tad less. Yeah, I know. Roman numerals always chat me. It's like, use numbers. Stop using letters and numbers. Stupid Romans. They're so primitive.
They couldn't divide. They had no hope of dividing by Roman
The
numerals.
Roman Empire does not divide.
The
Roman Empire stays united. There is no division in the Roman Empire.
That is why.
So NXIVM cult, upstate New York. No, you stand. Led by a guy called Keith Raniere.
Keith,
I know.
go Keith.
We finally got a real
Keiths
Keith.
of the world. You can have a cult too.
There should be the cult of, there probably is. Cult of Keith.
There is
spelled with a K.
there is a
There's
cult.
a Keith cult?
No, there's a cult based on name. Because it was a mate of mine's name.
Do you want a name?
Hawkins, I think. So
Hawkins.
all there as a last name, like there's a cult based around the last name Hawkins, and you can
Is it great?
I don't know more than that.
Not allowed.
I don't know more than that.
So Keith, in the NXIVM cult, claimed to offer executive stress programs for self-improvement.
It doesn't sound the worst.
Doesn't. Sounds great. But he was especially good at using shame and guilt to manipulate the women his deputies would recruit for him.
Stop.
What?
If
Not
you
a doomsday
can't
cult.
get someone to have sex with you without using shame and guilt,
Learn guitar. Juggle.
juggling being the sexy sport.
Jeez. Oh, it's true, mate.
You would be surprised how many relationships.
I stand on a street corner, throw one ball up and down in the air, and I'm exhausted by the end of the day. Sexually.
But yeah, back down on the shame and guilt. Just
entirely.
Could you not?
He would tell them things like they had been high-ranking Nazis in their former lives.
Oh.
You know, that old line.
I'm doing management consulting. Wait. I'm getting some
seeing-
hint of Nazi in
I'm
former
getting a
life.
skull badge, black hat, something to do with one arm.
Yeah. I'm definitely getting.
Were you a Nazi in a former life? Something about you.
You know, that's a
imagine
fake
that line?
power that is not a good power. I can spot former nuts.
It's as dumb as those dudes. You know, I'm quite the shaman. This is your pleasure. I mean, pressure point of blah blah. And like, fuck off, you wank. If you want to get laid, say you want to have the intercourse with me.
Look, I'll take a pleasure point rather than being accused of being a Nazi in a former life.
Former life.
Former life.
The sins
former
of
life.
me are a problem in this. So yeah, he'd say, look, you probably been a high-ranking Nazi in a former life.
But
do you know how you clean that up?
Is it going to be good?
It's going to be great.
Okay.
You have yogic sex with him
Cool.
to shift
not cool.
residual bad energy lurking in their systems away. So, hey, dear, sweetheart, lovely lady friend.
What we'll have to do is downward dog
No, you used to be a Nazi,
into
so I have to bone you pure yogically.
That's not going to solve the problem, and it's a fake problem.
You don't know that.
But also, if you want to have the yogic sex and it's consenting, go for it.
I agree. You don't need the Nazi bit. To be fair, though, in his defense, he eventually changed the Nazi thing
Okay.
because it wasn't really working or it lost its power. So instead, he would tell women the privileges of their gender had weakened them, turned them into prideful princesses, and that, in order to be freed from the prison of their mewling femininity, they needed to submit to a program of discipline and suffering. Suddenly you're thinking yogic sex under false pretenses sounds pretty fucking good, right?
Can I take neither? Can I take neither?
No, you don't have to worry because you're not a woman suffering princess syndrome because of your pride and mewling femininity.
Why didn't he try being just a decent human?
Not being a cunt.
Yeah, but there's that.
Yeah.
There's that.
Give it a crack, mate.
There are other pathways.
Yeah, Keith, if you're listening, try not being a cunt. He never thought of that. Right now he's listening, he's going,
Yeah.
why didn't someone mention that back in...
Well, maybe it's because he was a former Nazi, but he never looked at himself.
He never banged himself clean.
That's why.
Someone had to bang him clean.
Who could? But he's got the power, so he needs to find someone else that can bang clean.
See, it's not easy running a cult. He had a NXIVM subgroup, the Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which is bastardized Latin for Master of the Obedient Sisterhood.
Okay.
You know, a pyramid of sexual slavery in which members underwrote their vow of obedience to Raniere by having his initials branded on their groins.
On
Groins.
what?
It's the least sensitive part of the body.
Well, I mean, it shows commitment.
It really does.
It does show.
It really
commitment.
does. I don't want to any more longer be one of these people. Burn my groin, which is a very Irish name.
Burn my groin. Burn my groin. That's a great Irish name.
I'll burn my groin.
It's a good pub band, like in Ireland.
Burn my groin.
Like coming on for.
It's better than the
Pogues
Flaming Groins.
Is
Before
the Burn my groins.
straight after the Pogues is the Flaming Groins. Burning groin.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So they do that, and then they would hand over collateral, not money, well as well, in the form of compromising personal information and nude photos. So they'd hold on to that, obviously, for reasons you can imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
And, money, as I mentioned. So 2018, Raniere was arrested
Good.
on charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and other assorted crimes.
And groin burning.
Groin burn. Well, they did it themselves, essentially. It was consented, but consent under what circumstances? Let's not get into that. So at the time he was arrested, 2018, they estimated his little subgroup of the sorority had more than 100 members. He's currently serving a 120-year sentence, which is handy, for sex trafficking, racketeering, etc., and he had to pay a $1.75 million fine.
We kind of don't need money anymore once you're...
You don't. You don't.
I think 120 years in jail and here's a fine. You're like, well, you know.
Dude, I've got to get through the 120 years. You want to take my money? But as a cult guy, maybe it turns out he could do that. Maybe he got the powers of living a long time in jail.
Oh, it's possible. He yoga sexed himself into long life.
Yoga sexed himself.
Well, I'm sure people do it.
So these are clearly not great, but they get members. And this is like I said, this is just, I picked these two.
Still definitely not good cults.
Not good.
I can accept they are not even in the boundaries.
I must say a very liberal mind. And look, this is just two. There are many examples, as anyone listening right now has probably gone, I know a worse one, or I've heard three others. We all know that. You as well, being pure of heart, probably don't really know. But They're not great. But look, this begs one of the questions is why do people cult? Like, why would you?
As in, you mean not the leaders, but the followers, the people
all
that join
the others,
in?
the people that lift and hold them up. And we kind of hinted at this at the beginning. It's like, why are you doing this to yourselves? So a common theory, which you'd expect, and you could probably make this up yourself, the more uncertainty people have in their environments, be it at a global level or a more close to home, the more their levels of religiosity and cultic affiliation tend to rise. The more people feel
you're looking for certainty. You're looking for
control,
yep.
or what looks like control.
Yep. Okay. So
yep.
Here's a bunch of instructions for your life.
Yep.
You don't need.
Here's a higher power, be it a person, a force, whatever it may be. Yep. That makes things simple. And this is often an explanation that's offered for why cults were really getting really large in the US in the 60s. Everyone was into all kinds of cool and kooky things.
Oh, a time of heightened uncertainty. So they're like,
Cold War, etc.
Okay.
The world's all fucked up and messy, unlike now where everything's working fine. Also been suggested that Americans, compared to other countries that are similar, Australia, Britain, New Zealand, blah, 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 have way more on average economic uncertainty, way fewer social safety nets.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So they are more likely and still today have weirdly high levels of religiosity, cult membership, etc.
I think but probably the religiosity is there's probably a bunch of other things here going.
Yeah.
But I do know that the American economy does go through wider swings in the boom-bust cycle.
Yeah.
A lot of the other developed world economies are much more Keynesian, so they narrowed down those boom-bust cycles a bit with unemployment insurance and various things like that. And so you could imagine higher boom-bust cycles lead to greater uncertainty, lead to potentially greater cults. Okay.
Well, I think there's no question it's very hard to argue against that premise, like very hard.
Mm.
And let's add another one, just one other thing for why we might cult. This is a really good human psychological gift, a skill we have. Psychology of cult membership is literally like textbook definition of cognitive dissonance.
Yep.
And to top it off, and I didn't know this.
Give me the textbook definition.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Okay.
It's the ability to essentially hold on to a belief even when it's confronted by utterly and clear contradictory evidence in this instance. And it was literally termed in the 50s when a psychologist called Leon Festinger was studying the first UFO cult.
Yeah, okay.
That's where it came from.
So the cognitive dissonance, they're like, no, we've got evidence. And they're like, it's not evidence.
Fuck that. You've made my belief stronger. And you're like, oh, of course we have.
Yeah.
So he was studying, what they reckon is the first UFO cult. The Seekers, also called the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays.
No, that was Judith Durham. If I know one thing about them old-timey musics.
All bound for
Morningtown.
Glory Town.
Many miles away.
I wasn't Glory. Morning Glory.
All bound for Morning Glory.
Morning Glory.
That famous Australian song.
Right next door.
All bound for morning.
Lying right next to me. I think that's
many miles away.
When I was a kid, that was one of the musics that we
liked. Rolling, riding out along the bay.
Fuck me, that the fake dropping of the G amongst people who would never do that other than in their songs.
Yes.
Rock and rollin' riding. Like I'm feeling like you're inauthentic. Not you.
Look, for me, I don't know Judith Durham and the Seekers, but that song was played in primary school. It's a very teacher in the 80s playing music. We'll put some music on. It will be rock and rollin'.
I had a fourth grade teacher who'd bring her guitar in and she would play and sing. She was a very nice teacher, but it was just grown up me goes, oh Christ, that's so embarrassing.
No, good on her. Good on her.
She was lovely.
There you go. And the kids loved it. You're in grade 4.
Mrs. Walsh, if you're alive.
She is.
She might not be.
Well, no, how could that be possible?
She might only be 10 years older than me.
So she'd be 38.
Stop sucking up. So, yeah, it literally came about. So this particular group was led by Dorothy Martin, who said she got telepathic messages from aliens called the Guardians, who came from the planet Clarion.
Clarion.
Which used to be, I think, loudspeaker
yeah, definitely.
makers. They told her the United States was going to be destroyed by a massive earthquake and huge tidal wave on December 21st, 1954. It wasn't.
What? No.
I know you probably didn't realize that. I know. So a bunch of her members went, fuck this, and left. But a bunch didn't. Speaking of cognitive dissonance, they doubled down. And so for the first time, they went out and actively proselytized to people about the cult, which wasn't happening before, and said, no, it's going to happen on Christmas Eve. So they had a short window.
That's a very short time.
It is.
To double down.
Good for them, though.
December 21 to...
We're not going to go 20 years. We're going to go 3 days.
We were wrong.
3 days. We're just out by a bit. We didn't adjust for daylight saving.
I think there must be a sweet spot. There must be a sweet spot for
It ain't 3 days.
end of world prediction.
It ain't 3 days.
It's not. It's not. You've got to get out there. It takes a long time to get the message out there. I think you need like a 7 years. Like that's
7. It's always 7.
That's the window.
You're right.
You know, much longer than that, people are like, I don't care.
7 times 7, thrice declined.
Oh, nice. And you get the seventh son of a seventh son, like
Iron Maiden.
Oh no, who is he?
Iron Maiden album.
Perry Como.
Is he?
Yeah. I've told you that before.
The High Warlord.
I don't know, but Perry Como is the seventh son of a seventh son.
Get fucked. That's awesome.
It is.
Look at that. Look into seventh sons of seventh sons for me.
All right.
Write that down.
Seventh son of a seventh son.
I want to know more.
And I'll be like, there's one. It's Perry Como.
Short episode, but at least it was accurate. But so you know what happened, of course, on Christmas Eve, 1954. Again, America did not get destroyed.
Oh.
I know you didn't know that. So the believers who stayed, speaking of cognitive dissonance, said, that's because their faith had kept the bad thing
we kept it away.
Yeah,
we kept it away. We did the work.
Yeah. We did it. It's fine.
We thought it was going to come. We were wrong, but we prayed so hard, or we yoga sexed so hard.
We culted.
I think they yoga sexed. They definitely yoga sexed.
Let's not blur our cults together. That's disrespectful.
They could take leaves
These
from each
people,
other.
they were the side hug cult.
So they're
as they sip tea.
But you could watch For Aliens and have yoga sex.
So it seems we do cults. Why do we cult? Well, we crave certainty, particularly in uncertain times.
Yep.
And more to the point, which I've always found amazing, of course, I've never done this, we're more comfy looking crazy than looking wrong.
Are we?
Often. You've seen people do this. Double down on dumb things, on minor levels as well as major, because...
Yeah, stick to your argument.
Stick to your argument. If I'm going to admit I was wrong, it's like you could, and then you'd not look like such a tool.
Yeah.
But apparently no.
Did you come across any data on who joins cults? Because I read something once that
I got a list of names.
No. As in, potentially it led towards, as well as that uncertainty, but smarter people are more likely to join cults.
I didn't read.
Listener,
that.
Sorry, I know you're all actually geniuses.
You're all in danger.
Yeah,
if you're not cult members already.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can member of more than one though.
More than.
Oh, I didn't look at that.
Join 3 or 4 cults.
I'm in 4 cults. It's exhausting, but it's worth it. I'm so uplifted.
You could have maybe they can line up. You could have a UFO cult, and like a fruit eating cult, and
fuck cult. You could have a fuck cult
and a fuck cult, and that's for my Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, you need the fruit to have the energy for the fuck cult, and the UFOs to take your mind off things.
So there you go. That'll be 3.
I never thought of that. More than one cult at a time.
I think computer says no. I think cults,
devotion to the one is
cults require devotion to the one.
But if you don't tell people.
You know the whole thing about, sneaking around and having another family in a city nearby.
No one has proven that.
No.
I'm sick of the accusations,
I'm not
man.
Saying, but I imagine there's a whole bunch of stress that says, I actually have 2 families with 4 kids in 2 different cities. That would suck.
Horrifying.
But can you imagine running around on 2 cults going, ah?
What if the dudes in the blue robes find me when I'm wearing my red hat and the stilettos? So, good cults. I rummaged hard. Sociologist, Dr. Elizabeth Puttick. She wrote a book called Women in New Religions, in Search of Community, Sexuality, and Spiritual Power.
Okay.
And she said some women are actually empowered by cults.
I can totally believe it. The landscape around you is pretty draconian and tough.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a pathway to becoming a little bit more independent, maybe.
And there's a whole bunch of this stuff is under the title of New Religious Movements, NRM, which many people or groups who are accused of being cults recently would rather say, no, we're a new religious movement. We're more recent.
Cult, like just to go here, you started with destructive cults. Cult is pretty much associated with it's a negative.
Bad.
Whereas the other one, you could just go, okay, it's a small religious movement. It's not one of the big churches, not one of the big billion plus, but it's
got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a long interview with Puttick. I'll just give you a couple of quotes because it's interesting. She said, look, I had a very positive personal experience of living in an NRM, New Religious Movement, which offered women a lot of spiritual empowerment. The Osho movement. I want to explore how my experience compared with women in other religions, old and new. That's what she was doing.
So the Osho movement.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Why did she join? So she said, I was exploring the human potential movement. I was interested in meditation. I wanted something more actively spiritual, and I joined more psychotherapy type groups. She's a sociologist. She's an educated woman. Quite a few people I know were going out to India and discovered Osho and joining up. He was a very intelligent guru, a philosopher by training. Some movements were very devotional, but Osho, or the Osho movement, had its philosophical side as well, and it was an adventure for her. When she was a member of the movement for about 5 years.
Just give me a timeline here. So she was a member whilst she was a sociologist, a researcher?
Yeah,
okay.
It was all part of the gig.
It wasn't like it was a before and then I came out.
I believe these were concurrent. I could be wrong because this didn't come up in the interview. So the interviewer says, how long were you part of the gig? And she said, I lived in India for 5 years. We left when Osho left India, and after a while I kind of drifted away. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of Osho?
Look, I think I have. I think I have, but I wouldn't be able to put more of a pin on it than that. It's sort of background noise.
So otherwise known as the Rajneesh movement, the Bhagwan, the orange people.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
So that was a religious movement inspired by Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh in the later last century. And one of the many quotes from him, it's a religionless religion, only a quality of love, silence, meditation, and prayerfulness.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. People followed the norms of wearing similar clothes, orange, participating in the same activities.
We do that. It's just blue.
And everyone says for a cult, what you need is kind of a powder blue. They're the powder blue people. The people were allowed to come and go as long as they didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, okay. If you hurt someone, you got to stay or you got to go.
Oh, fuck off. Yeah, you're out, allegedly. He wasn't into marriage and kids because apparently, according to him anyway, families are really dysfunctional. And also apparently very good at business. He became famous for having, I think when he finally kicked the tin or finished, he had 93 Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
He became famous for Rolls Royces.
Look, there's a little bit of me that says that's a bit of a sign.
It doesn't seem.
You don't need 93.
No, I'm thinking 80's enough. I can't drive more than 80 cars at a time.
Oh, I'd love to.
But I don't understand that when you see rich people and like, this is my car collection. I'm like, I can imagine having
I want to see a stunt driver. You know, I like ghosting other bikes. You've got one bike and you're riding another bike next to you. Like that, sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, you do.
I reckon you put two cars, one going forward and one going in reverse, and you got to you sit between them and
tear yourself in half
and steer them. Stunt drivers, please achieve that one for me.
That impresses me, but what I get confused by is having more than one car.
I think it's the legs down onto the accelerator pedals that is going to be hard.
You get a thing attached to your chin, a stick. He had a second in command, and this really sticks in my head because I remember her doing TV interviews in Australia in the 80s. So her name was Sheela with a double E. She was his 2IC. She came to Australia in the mid-80s, and honestly, I watched the interviews. Freaked me the fuck out. She was a freaking hardcore, savage, dead-eyed woman.
Oh, okay.
Terrifying. So she did 60 Minutes and other news shows.
But they like the dead-eyed people on 60 Minutes.
She was hardcore.
Like that's their famous. They find someone dead-eyed for me, and that's what we want.
And it was a heyday too. 60 Minutes in the 80s was going off. So she arrived in WA, Western Australia, in 85 to set up an office at their commune in Fremantle.
Yep.
But everyone got the shits because people in that area, a rich follower bought a spot near Pemberton, I don't know where that is, and other than in WA, and they established a commune, a school, etc. And apparently the locals got pretty hysterical and freaked out.
Good on your locals.
Yep. There were public meetings, building applications were rejected, local shires got the shits.
That's what you do.
Exactly.
Beat them down in the bureaucracy.
Yeah. So Sheela comes out, sets up an office there and starts going on an interview tour of the country. And she said, look, she described the townspeople different ways, including stupid, idiotic prune faces and fruitcase.
Prune faces? No, I know, but you don't got to say that on TV.
It's
like
better.
People can't help a prune face.
Resting prune face?
Resting prune face.
Write that down. We're on it. What she became famous for when she was specifically asked about the concerns of people in Pemberton in an interview, and I remember this too, she was asked, well, what about them? Her quote was, what can I say? Tough titties.
Mm.
So she became the tough titties lady. That's what she was.
Look, you say that on the news once.
Especially in the 80s. So she didn't go well. And of course, there's a whole long story.
So hang on, is this still a good cult or not a good cult?
Well, this is what Putik was saying. I'm just giving you background to this cult that she said was actually quite empowering for women.
Okay.
Sheila's story is long and involved in itself. She and the Bhagwan eventually broke up.
Okay.
8 months after they broke up, 85, Sheela pleaded guilty to attempted murder, electronic eavesdropping, immigration fraud, and engineering a salmonella outbreak that made more than 750 people ill.
Engineering a salmonella outbreak?
Like putting shit in restaurant food, in salads, I think it was.
In a way that's not just like normal wait staff going, fuck that guy.
No. She went, we are going to like deliberately go and so she was given concurrent 4.5 year federal prison terms and a 5-year suspended sentence.
What the fuck? Concurrent means it's all in.
You
the
got a whole
same
bunch
one.
of years. Yeah,
No, you're not serving.
Yeah. I'm doing 8 4-year terms next to each other. So,
you can't.
So 4 years.
Time does not work that way.
Still 4 years.
Like,
yeah.
You can't
But it feels like 16.
No, it doesn't.
What are you talking about? We're going to make it really
Fucking
boring.
lawyers, calm down with that. That's dumb.
Anyway, so she had jail and stuff and then came out. I think last heard from, she lives in Switzerland. So the point is, whether it was Bhagwan condemned her, he condemned her, the leader condemned her.
So just to go here, there can be positive elements of this cult. It didn't seem super destructive, but it had tendencies to spiral towards
Or
dodgy
some of its
behaviours.
members did, and there was a lot of money moving around, but that might not necessarily be dodgy.
It's not as bad as some of the others that you've said. There's no sex yoga.
Fuck no.
There's no...
Apparently not.
There's no murder. Not a lot of murder. Minimum murder.
No
Well,
aliens.
not more than the background rate. Like if your cult has murder rates the same as the rest of society,
0.01% in
whatever,
Greater Sydney,
then that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay.
You endorse that?
I guess
That's the wholesome thumbs up.
Just stick to the background rate of murder. That's all. You don't have to be perfect.
Don't be a dick about it. Just be normal. So Putik goes on to say, I just wanted to give you background to the Osho thing. It's interesting that she described it as Osho, not Bhagwan, Rajneesh or anything. That I found that kind of intriguing because I'm like, Osho, what is that? Like, oh shit, it's Bhagwan. Anyway, so she says, look, talking about the roles women have in NRMs, more progressive movements such as Osho, women are treated as equal or even superior to men. They're allowed full spiritual and social participation. They're encouraged to teach. They're encouraged to lead. Other movements like that one plus progressive Buddhist movements, pagan and shamanic groups, they offer women spiritual power and status and pathways to enlightenment, etc., which isn't terrible.
Yep.
And she said back when she got into the Osho thing, women were very much raised up from her perspective.
So that particular
which is radical.
Yeah. And there could be others that are doing a similar sort of thing.
So it's quite radical. So, I mean, the interesting thing about this is good and bad, unless she was deeply indoctrinated.
But it does seem to me, if you interview any former cult person, I'm sure they would say, look, the good days were great. It provided me
probably
and add in a whole. You're not going to have a cult if it's 100% torture and terror.
The moment I started, it was terrible.
Of course, any cult to be attractive, it's got to have a whole bunch of good things about it. It's got to provide that certainty or the pathway to individual freedom or a pathway
a little tickle in the trouser area in a non-confronting way.
All of those, and this is the sex cult thing. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are like, I was repressed and now I am not.
All the time. It's fabulous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's got to be positive. So even in the terrible cults. So she is saying, yes, there were some good things and I accept that.
Yeah.
But so we're putting that on a not terrible, not perfect, but are you calling it good?
I'm calling it not bad.
Okay.
So trying to find actual good cults, not easy. If we broaden the definition of cult to mean great devotion to a person or an idea.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Yep.
Or people united by devotion or allegiance to an artistic or intellectual movement or figure.
And so it doesn't have to be about, spirituality or...
Well, maybe it doesn't. This is the question. I mean, because it's kind of like you flagged earlier, is some definitions of cult are intrinsically just cult is bad.
Yep.
Therefore, of course, all cults are bad.
Well, the one, I don't know when you're going to get to this, but the one I've been thinking about a lot is there's a lot of sports that, even being on a team sport asks you to be there and say, hey, can you quit some of the other stuff in your life so that you can be
devotion
here for
to
this?
the group.
And that's partly it's a commitment to your friends, but it's also like, okay, this is a positive thing. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of gyms, some of these new gyms that are like, hey, you didn't turn up on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Maybe you'd be feeling better if you did.
You're a piece of shit. We hope you die.
But that's a little bit culty. Like that.
I was a member of a gym that would do that. You didn't turn up when you said you would.
Exactly.
What's going on?
So we're using some of the cult-like things and not saying they are cults because, of course, they're not talking about your whole life.
No.
But they are
talking. And they only take some of your money.
They are talking about a bit of your life.
Well, and this goes on. So there's a group, when I was looking up good cults again, it was difficult to find. There's a mob called the Cult Branding Company.
Okay.
But they're about branding more than cult.
Yeah, they're not actually about branding your cults.
No, it's like, hey,
brand your cults so they won't be seen like a cult. This is how you can do it.
Benign cults. They talk about this term on their website, benign cults. They got a disclaimer. This news page is about groups, organizations or movements which may have been called cults and or cult-like in some way, shape or form. But not all groups called either cult or cult-like are harmful. Instead, they may be benign and generally defined as simply people intensely devoted to a person, place or thing. Therefore, the discussion or mention of a group, organization or person on this page is not necessarily meant to be pejorative.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this disclaimer in one of the pages on their site. And so they're talking about benign cults. They have one trait in common with their negative counterparts: the intensity with which the cult members are attached to the object of their affection.
Okay.
Which is fine, kind of going with what you're saying, your team, whatever it may be. They go on to say benign cults are never destructive. They don't harm or injure their followers physically or mentally. They should add financially.
I'm screaming for examples here, but...
Oh, we'll get to that. Benign cults have leaders who are accountable to the group and the leaders value feedback of their followers. They're inclusive.
I do imagine, you can imagine a destructive cult going, I value feedback. You know, you just give your feedback in the torture tent.
And when you get it wrong, you're out.
Yeah.
That is incorrect feedback. So, yeah, they say they're inclusive. Anyone who wants to belong can. Destructive cults tend to be exclusive. So, like, as soon as you change or do anything wrong, you're out. There's no price to admission. Just being enthusiastic is enough. But the qualifier being enthusiastic about the brand is enough.
Yeah. You got to care. Like, you can't join if you don't care.
Are you a member of the cult? Yeah. What do you think about it? Man,
I hate it.
That's fine.
You're not really a member.
I'm ambivalent.
Yeah.
So they help fill the emotional needs and wants of followers in a positive way. So there are clear, easy, identifiable, objectively observable benefits derived from being members of benign cults, particularly social benefit. So that means kind of what you were asking about. Apple fanboys, Trekkies, obsessive car fans like Holden's Rule, etc.
Yep. Or sports teams.
Yep, you could argue they're benign cults. Fitness and wellness cults, CrossFit, Bikram yoga, Goop.
Yep.
You know, Gwyneth's, the cult of Gwyneth. I mean...
Well, it's interesting that we use those words and people are like, no, I don't mean a real cult. But there is a level of all of those things you're talking about before. Some form of devotion to a leader.
Yep.
The leader is right, even if they're not perfect. At some form of community here. So
food cults, paleo, Atkins, raw.
Yep.
Vegan.
Because they give answers in a world of uncertainty
to questions that nobody asked.
Look, and you know, you can absolutely, a dietary cult or a dietary description of his, just eat this and this will solve your problem. And if you do it and it works for you, is that a good thing? Yep.
I think so. I got no beef with it. So wholesome verdict. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Are there, or at least can there be, good cults?
I think there are tendencies that are cult-like to ask people to commit a little bit more and question when they might leave that are actually good. I think communities have long said you are better off in a community.
Yeah.
And we will show you those benefits and we'll hold you to them. And if you try to leave, we'll say, look,
are you sure?
Things on the outside are worse.
Yeah.
I think there are tendencies there that can make you healthier, can make you more connected with people, can make you better off overall. Does that tendency lead into potential negatives? Of course. So I reckon cult-like things. Like I think it's it'll probably be hard to find something that is deeply spiritual, but I reckon there are cult-like things that say look after yourself in this way. It's like the dietary ones or the fitness ones or the music ones. They're all like, think about your journey through this life in this way.
Yep.
And it can be positive. And I think they're different from the ones that call you evil for leaving, that kind of thing. So I think there are cult-like tendencies that we all do, and probably they make your life better in a lot of ways if you get them. But there's terrible out there.
And there's other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if we go old school definition of cult, I'd say, there are good cults if you're the leader or the leader's generals until you get busted, commit suicide or something else. Yeah. For the followers, like you mentioned earlier, briefly at least, for a period, there's something good in them.
Yep.
If we broaden out a bit more, I agree, like fitness clubs, food clubs, car clubs, fucking great, like get obsessed with your car, your CrossFit, whatever, that's great. I got no beef with that. Why not?
Yeah, I think go too. I think
get cultish.
If you, listener, wanted to make a benign cult,
let's be clear. I want to be a cult leader. Because I have no choice. So my wife does a lot of business and other psychology profiling.
Have you raised this with her that you want to be a cult leader?
She started it.
Oh my God.
She started it. So she does a lot of these things, like all kinds of different, and I'm going to say, in underlying science-backed personality inventories, leadership styles, thinking styles, etc. And literally the common thread that runs through them. At one point, she read, after doing a couple of them, using me as a test subject as she qualifies, she's like, basically, you're a cult leader, or you should be. And I'm like, fuck, you're right. You're right.
There's actually a long historical precedent of something that I think Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, did this, and I think Jesus may have at once, and I think there might be a few others of that level of starting big religions. Who they're like, I'm doing my thing. And they rejected the idea of followers. They're like,
what better way to get followers?
No, but to say to other people, look, this is not about you. I'm doing this for me. And if this benefits you, fine. That's good. That's good.
That's not what I'm doing.
And I think there's that moment when someone comes up with an idea for the world. Whether it's spiritual or aliens or fitness or whatever. I think you can say, look, I will leave this here. I will leave this for you, and that's all cool.
Do with it as you will.
Do it as you will.
Yeah.
Like the I think when things get bad is when they go, oh, but I could get some of the other things. I could become someone who has a closer relationship with followers.
Or the good side is, thinking personally, I could have a bunch of money and intercourse, and all I got to do is say stuff.
Find your other pathway.
That is my pathway.
Seriously,
what's wrong with that?
Here's your good cult. Is someone?
I don't want you to join if you don't want to be there. I'm not a monster.
I just can't imagine.
And if you want to leave, you're allowed, but you can't have your money back.
This is what I stress about. Is that why would you become some people following it? It's like, do that. I don't want any responsibility for your lives. Like,
of course not.
Like, what?
No, if it goes wrong, it's their fault. I've learned enough from this alone. No, I don't want to be a cult leader, but because the thing I can't do is not give a fuck. That's the problem. I reckon the only way you can be a decent, as in by decent I mean really strictly speaking, cult leader is not give a shit about other people.
So
you have to disconnect from humanity.
A successful cult leader.
You have to go I don't give a fuck. It's up to you. It's all on you. Fuck you.
And you'll find most of these people are sociopathic. So
I just read an article from my Apple News feed that said a woman standing there looking directly at the camera in a scary, dead-eyed way, saying, I'm a sociopath, but it's not all bad. Here's what I've discovered. It's just basically telling the sociopath side of things. I'm like, I'm still scared of you.
I think there's cult-like things that are not all bad, but then there's those people that go, I could use this to get some sex.
We're still talking about, we're going to get to the bad stuff?
Oh, my God. All right. Hey, I've been looking through our mailbag. We've recently talked about fears.
I don't remember that. That was
phobias, things that people.
Phobias.
What are the common phobias? Well, we had Michaela711 says, as long as you know what you're talking about, public speaking is fine. So, different ways of approaching.
With knowledge, you can be confident.
With knowledge, you can.
Well, if someone says, "Hey, you've never done physics," do a lecture on physics.
Some people spoke about a fear of buttons, componophobia, which.
Well, we've all been there. If you have a fear of buttons, please reach out. We'd love to get you on.
I think a fear of buttons is it's people going, I want to wear comfortable clothes. I want to wear T-shirts and track pants.
Yeah, no zippers, no buttons, no belts.
But I did Mopshond says they're afraid about what will happen if Wholesome Show goes on hiatus again. And I'm like,
when do we go on hiatus?
I don't know. But
Thank you, though.
But obviously Mopshond, that's their fear. But
is there a name for that fear?
Here was another one that Mopshond noted.
Yeah.
This is in the definition of sex.
Should I be sitting down?
If the Wholesome Show isn't playing through my speaker, it isn't sex. So
I feel the same way.
So
I'm the same. I'm like, sweetheart, it's time, and I put on Us. Well, you don't do that?
No.
You should think about it.
I'll think about it. A couple of other ones. Thank you, Stephen in Adelaide, noting that the DB Cooper obviously is a nod in pop culture to Coop in Twin Peaks, one of the greatest shows of all time.
So good.
Dale Cooper. Coop.
Cooper.
So an FBI agent dressed in an innocuous black and white suit. So
there is nothing innocuous about Kyle MacLachlan's jawline, though.
No, it's beautiful.
Like you see him in profile, you're like, that is no one has that profile.
And Roller Girl before she was Roller Girl. Seriously, Twin Peaks, such a good show. Such a good show.
Really good.
People still wigging out about the end of Science. Like,
Still.
stop it.
It hasn't finished yet, if it helps.
I love your enthusiasm.
There's still more
for science
happening.
to keep going.
We work in a science faculty. There's still science happening.
Well, but I do like people that are like, we've invented a lot of things since the 1980s, and it's like, yes, 40 years ago. It's like, so are you saying the next 400,000 years will be the same? Like, anyway, what other topics have you been thinking about?
Oh, I've got a few. What are the most useless emotions, and can we actually control them?
Guilt.
Can we actually control emotion?
Can our super ego go, no, don't feel that?
So we start with going, okay, guilt.
And I feel like
shame's another big one people bring up. Useless emotion. But I disagree. I think shame's actually extremely useful.
Shame
it's destructive as fuck potentially, but it's very useful.
Shame means you're not going nude to
You're not being Trump. But can we actually control them? So like you say, you shouldn't feel guilt, and you're like, okay, I'll pretend I don't. Do you actually have the ability to stop yourself feeling that whatever that emotion is?
Yeah, I like that. That's really interesting. I had a little tiny one. This is for economists out there. Over the time, in getting Wholesome Show episodes together, quite often I've gone, okay, someone had 500 guilders or 700 doubloons or whatever. And there's a big bit of me that's like, how do you convert that to modern money?
What are you talking about?
Like what is a guilder? What is a doubloon?
How many firkins is that?
And there's a bit that's like, how do you convert to modern money? And there's a bunch of websites that will do something.
iPhone. How much did an iPhone cost in guilders when the East India Company was trading?
That's how I would do it. Or a Big Mac.
Big Mac,
or a Big Mac. A Big Mac in East India Company money. And I know that this is kind of a technical question, but I think there's something more there. Like, how do you convert money from them, and how do we understand the concept? It's a good question though.
How much was a Big Mac in Siam? I'm going to go with this one. I've got a couple, but I'm going to just give you this one. I know it's a listicle, but the weirdest and most niche degrees you can actually study as a degree.
Nice.
I started looking and holy fuck. Holy fuck. Some you kind of go, whatever, that's just some idiot getting wanky about the fact that it's women's studies, which is not niche or whatever. But
no, 50%.
My God, are there others?
51.
My God, there are others. There are some wacky ones.
There was always I went to uni in Queensland, and
that's okay. You speak English well.
Yeah, the University of Sunshine Coast was new around that time, and they had a degree in surfing of some sort.
Fuck yeah!
And a lot of people
harumph.
And I think there was actually a little bit more than that, and you could imagine a bunch of, but there was
salt water management. You got another?
I'll do this one, because this came to me. It was a little rabbit hole, a little mini rabbit hole.
Hole it.
So there was a story a couple of days ago about a man having his pet alligator taken away from him because he hadn't filled out his paperwork correctly to keep his pet alligator. Now, the alligator was old.
Was this in Florida by any chance?
No, it was in New York. It was like a 30-year-old alligator. He'd had it for all of those times, and he had kept his paperwork up to date, his license to keep a pet alligator.
This is like one specialist in the bureaucracy who goes, Keith, you're up. It's your time to shine again.
So he kept it up to date until like COVID, and then things had slipped.
Well,
and so he wasn't up to date. I mean, there was some incidents of allowing people to swim in the pool with the alligator and petting the alligator and things like that. But he said it was a big teddy bear.
Nope.
But anyway,
Nope. It's a prehistoric lizard beast.
I can imagine you feed it okay.
Nope.
And it's not going to eat you.
Nope. I just don't think that's likely.
But this got me to going, what's that meme about alligators living in drains? In the swamp, in the sewer system.
Those are no longer pets.
Yeah, they're no longer pets. That's what I thought. Do they throw? Was that ever true? Was that not true? And you know what I landed on? I've got to tell you this story. I got to tell you this little story because
Newton goldfish with teeth.
Well, like I'd love to find out what lives in our sewers, and that's something interesting to me. But I did like this article. This is from the New York Times in
your wife is a lucky woman.
1935.
What are you doing, honey? I can't come in yet. I'm seeing what's living in the sewer. Will you have a wash? I wash my hands.
So, February 10th, 1935.
Yeah.
The youthful residents of 123rd Street near the murky Harlem River were having a rather grand time at dusk yesterday, shoveling the last of the recent snow into a gaping manhole.
Not a euphemism.
No, it wasn't. They were literally shoveling snow. Anyway, Salvatore Condalucci, 16 years old of wherever, was assigned to the rim. His comrades would heap blackened slush near him, and he, carefully observing the sewer's capacity, would give the last fine flick to each mound. Suddenly, there were signs of a clogging 10 feet below, where the manhole drop merged with the dark conduit leading to the river. Yep. Salvatore yelled, "Hey, you guys, wait a minute," and got down on his knees to see what was the trouble. What he saw in the thickening dust almost caused him to topple into the icy cavern, for the jagged surface of the ice blockade below was moving and something black was breaking through. Salvatore's eyes widened. Then he managed to leap to his friends and call, "It's honest, it's an alligator." Anyway.
In the snow.
In the snow.
They're renowned for their cold weather functioning.
This is New York.
Yeah.
There was a murmur of skepticism. Jimmy Marino, 19.
I love the euphemism, murmur of skepticism. Bull fucking shit, mate.
you know.
Bull fucking shit.
And then over he comes. "He's right," he said. Frank Lonzo, 18, looked next. He also confirmed the spectre. Then there was a great crush about the opening in the middle street, and heads were bent low looking around the aperture. So the animal was apparently threshing about in the ice that they had shoveled down into the manhole.
Was it?
Where was it? When the first wave had passed, the boys decided to help it out. So I love this.
What a good idea.
They sent a delegation down to the Lehigh Stove and Repair Shop just down the street. "We want some clothesline," the kids declared.
Rope.
They call it clothesline.
Rope.
Rope.
String.
Of some
Let's
sort.
tie our shoelaces together.
So anyway, these boys go back, and I think Salvatore does it. Young Condalucci, so this is Salvatore, an expert on Western movies, fashioned a lasso.
Yes, he did. And then
with the others watching on breathlessly, he and the New York Times goes for boring writing here, but I'm going to go. He lassoed the alligator in the sewer. After several tantalizing near catches, looped it around the gator's neck. Then he pulled hard. There was a grating of rough, leathery skin against jumbled ice, but the job was too much for one youth. The others grabbed the rope and all pulled. So they've lassoed this alligator out of the drains.
But fuck, he's heavy.
Slowly, with its curving tail twisting weakly, the animal was dragged from the snow 10 feet through the dank cavern and to the street where it lay.
Is that better?
Yeah. And I think it's like 6 feet long. Like it's a decent sized alligator that they've dragged out. And then they were like, "Okay, let's let it go and see if we can look after that." Apparently, when they went to go and let it go, then
didn't go well.
It didn't go well. They beat it to death with the shovels, which is not nice.
That is not the same as letting something go.
It's not nice, but I did like this idea that like in 1935, every kid is basically Huckleberry Finn. They're lassoing alligators out of the
and painting fences.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, Tom Sawyer painted the fence.
But character.
I like this idea that, my God, kids were living interesting lives back then when you're lassoing alligators out of the sewer. But I just wanted to know, what is living in our sewers? Are there any alligators? Are there other things living down there?
A lot of pressure on those stories. Well, we don't need to decide. We just need to tantalize.
No, I got one more little tiny one.
Oh, yeah, what do you got?
This is just a bit of bigotry that.
Good. I'm in.
I know that some people share. Maybe this is a question for you, listeners. I love you, Gen Z. You are wonderful. You are wonderful people. Why can't you queue properly?
It's true. It's true. You've got a bar that's, let's say, 20 meters long, and then you go to the bar and you think, well, we all know how to queue at a bar. What do?
Everyone
shoulder to shoulder.
Everyone throughout history has known what queuing is.
Yeah, I'm go to the bar and you work up, you cover the whole front of the bar.
That's what you do.
But now you get a long, thin line behind one cash register. It makes no sense.
Or you stand like 4 meters back from someone else and like, are you in the queue or not in the queue?
And they go, oh yeah, we forgot we were. You're like, well, how? What were you doing here?
And I got a feeling that your inability to queue could be something to do with the fact that social media ruined your lives.